At the southern extremity of the African continent, rising above the turbulent seas and the coasts of the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans, the Cape of Good Hope emerges to mark the entry point of a large country that bears the simple name of its geographic location, South Africa. These rocky shores, worn away by the ocean, have seen merchants, outcasts, and adventurers disembark from all continents. Table Mountain reigns benevolently over Cape Town, mother city of South Africa. It's like an amphitheater opening onto the Atlantic Ocean. For 400 years, the colonizers have shaped, cleared, and annexed this land of hostile vegetation into a wine-making Eldorado. From the north to the south, the Cape is home to the African continent's most important vineyards. "25 miles from Cape Town, in the Franschhoek Valley, Mark Soames is an Afrikaner winemaker. Strongly attached to his history, for over 30 years, he has continued a traditional South African winemaking culture.
The bush vine was the traditional way of growing grapes in South Africa. We've been growing grapes here for viticulture since the 1650s. And all the oldest surviving vineyards from the 17th century, 18th century, all the records suggest that they were bush vines. It's not only for tradition's sake, but also because if the vine is just a bush, if it can't spread its arms, then it naturally only produces a few bunches. So all the efforts of the vine go into fewer grapes and you get a higher quality.
Thanks to its geographic location, the Cape region has a multitude of microclimates that reinforce the diversity of terroirs. Ancient techniques allow adaptation to the area's extremely high temperatures.
Every year, you know the grapes are going to be ripe. We have more than enough sun. But our problem is that there can be too much ripeness. The grapes, as they ripen, so they lose their acidity. So this ancient method it was introduced by the ancient Greeks, and the idea was they took the rachis of the bunch here and they twisted it, strangled it. But we have this high technology called pliers.
We do use stick pliers. It's much easier for us. And as you said, it's a matter on whether we decide when to harvest. That's also very important, that you quickly do the pinching.
So show us how you pinch it.
You take the plier like that, and you squeeze it a little bit hard.
And then you can see this is physiologically, that's disconnected. This is not going to flow, nothing's going to flow here, but it still hangs. And then it carries on ripening.
So then we have your sugar will be balanced and your acid.
That's right. Have your cake and eat it too.
Yes.
Thanks very much. It all seems to be going well.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks to you. See you again.
Okay, see you again.
Cheers, my friend.
Mark is not only a winemaker, he's a famous neuropsychiatrist. Since acquiring his property, along with his 110 black employees, he started a collective reflection on the history of these vineyards.
The terroir of a wine estate is not only its geology and its geography, it's also its history. When I took over this estate 14 years ago, I was very much aware of how much was wrong in the relationship between me as the owner of the land and the people who work here. This land was taken from the Bushmen who were here. Then we brought slaves here to build this farm. My house was built by slaves. The people who live here today are descended from those slaves and from those Bushmen from whom this land was taken. So that obviously creates a very specific sort of relationship between me and them.
A relationship fused with tensions, Today, like many Afrikaner landowners, Mark Soames is obliged to propose a new participation method. He gave 1/3 of the shares of his company to its workers. 20 years after the birth of this nation, a 1913 law called the Native Land Act always reserved 93% of the land for the white minority. The issue of land reform is more relevant than ever here. It brings hope for the black population that aspires to become landowners. In the township of Langa, the oldest in Cape Town, 340 people organize their lives at the edge of a Europeanized society. Sheila Hanjwa is an exception in the winemaking world. A native in this township, she is the first black woman to have a diploma in oenology. She dreams of one day owning a vineyard in the heart of her neighborhood.
What I have in mind, Ralph, I want you to come in on board, to come and educate people of South Africa. I will call it South Africa because it will be open for everyone. The skills, what I saw in...
Rolf Seidvogel is director of Blauwklippen, a large winemaking company. He taught winemaking to Sheila viticulture and helps her to make her own wine. He continues to support her financially and technically.
This land has got a lot of potential. People of there's Langa, Kukuletu, Nyanga. I wanted those people to come and learn about blending the wine, blending your spirit, blending whatever, but to understand exactly what is happening in the industry. So this is what the legacy that I want to leave here. I want you to come and put your footprint here in this land and make a mark.
I will help you to leave your footprint here. I think that's the better.
Rolf understands that the black population's new interest in winemaking represents a great financial potential. If Sheila can become the owner of her vineyard land, she'll be the first black South African winemaker. Tracy Randall is a historian. As part of her thesis on the origin of South African wine-growing properties, she regularly visits winemaking domains in search of unpublished documents. She visits the city of Franschhoek, where it all began in the late 17th century.
So here is a place that has quite special significance for a lot of South African families. The heritage goes back to the French Huguenots who settled here from kind of 1688. There were only 400 of them that came from France and started this community. It was a place populated by elephants, so its original name was Olifantshoek, and then later it came to be called Franschhoek or French Corner.
Dutch from the East India Company, in search of laborers for their vineyards, appealed to the French Huguenots. The persecuted Protestants accepted a journey with no return against some promises, clearing the land and abandoning their native French language.
The wine industry, it wasn't doing so well at the Cape. The Dutch couldn't really keep up with it, so they were really needing the skills of the French people. Some of them were expert wine farmers. They had been practicing viticultural practices in France.
Today, her research brings her to the legendary vineyard Groot Constantia. She has an appointment with Jean Naudet, descendant of a Huguenot family, passionate about history and director of the domain. He wants to tell her about a discovery.
I've got something very interesting here that I want to show you. This is what a US citizen discovered on a beach at Lewis, Delaware. US historians traced it back to a ship that stranded there in 1774.
Amazing.
And this part of these glass pieces was an inscription on a bottle. And you can see here's an old bottle, and that was part of that original piece. It says Constantia Vein.
Vein.
Yeah,
it's like a puzzle piece for historical detective work.
Yeah. At Groot Constantia, this is proof that the wine of the estate was so popular that it was exported to the US. One of our most important clients were Napoleon Bonaparte. And if you look at this brand that we are currently using, Grand Constance, it's the French translation of Groot Constantia. So we assume Grand Constance was the name of the wine that Napoleon had when he was in exile in St. Helena.
Yes, apparently every year he received 1,000 litres, up to 1,000 litres of Groot Constantia wine.
Yeah, and apparently that was before he passed. He said, "Can I have a glass of Constantia?"
And who could blame him, really?
Right, I would like to show you that painting.
So that's the Dutch East India Company. They were a trading company for spices and silks and ceramics, which were exported all around the world. You know, it was an 8-month journey by ship from Amsterdam to the Dutch East India quarters in Batavia, and the Cape is just situated perfectly in between.
Yeah, they had to get in vitamin C, and that was wine, was one of the important things that contained vitamin C.
And it was preserved, so it wasn't something that could go off as much in the journey. So it was something that they could have at hand. It also kept the spirits of the sailors and soldiers up on long journeys. But I mean, it's a really treacherous journey. Apparently, from only 1 in 4 made it back home.
As far back as the 18th century, the East India Company exported South African wine around the world. All trade halted in 1977 with the economic embargo imposed by the United Nations due to apartheid policy. The return to democracy in 1993 and the reopening of trade boosts the wine industry. New vineyards are emerging, planted in what were virgin and wild landscapes. Surface areas are accounted for, not in hundreds of acres, but in thousands. Wayne Gabb is one of the big landowners. He must find the balance with the flora and the fauna present on his land.
And as I mentioned, over 6,000 different species of plant. And then the animals as well that have adapted. So we've had a look, we've seen the buck, how they come down, and they lie and look for protection amongst the rows of the vineyards there, because each row works as a little windbreak.
Wayne's vineyards are bordering a large wildlife reserve. Every day, his grapes are a temptation for the hundreds of species living there.
Mora. So we got the dog hair there. We must just make sure we put enough in the bags, and the bags are nice and secure. And have you seen any buck this morning?
No.
Nothing has come through. So when we identify eating, we put a little bit of fresh dog hair, and because they're so sensitive to smell, they pick up the dog hair, and within 2-3 days we can see the growth coming back in those areas the buck move off. On your rounds on the farm this morning, did anyone see any of the baboons around?
We saw it yesterday. They're coming over the hills, but they left quickly, and they seen every movement of the people around the vineyards.
The vineyard's layout allows the baboons to enjoy up to 2 tons of grapes per week, which represents a considerable financial loss, 1,500 to 2,000 bottles of wine.
We have little gas cannons that just let off a loud bang, and that just keeps them moving. So they're very hesitant then to come down into the vineyard. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to open up the gas canister, which then ignites the 2 cannons, because Kobus spotted some baboons coming down off the mountain. Okay. But occasionally they do come, occasionally they do have a little bit of feeding. We both work with nature in the situation. We don't mind that everyone gets a little bit of grapes, but not too much.
The history of the area, sometimes makes one reconsider popular established knowledge. On Mark Solm's farm, Tracy Randall made a unique discovery with the help of all the black workers. Under the farm are the remains of a village dating from prehistoric times. Many tools have been exhumed. It's a gigantic job, which prompted Tracy to move her office onto Mark's property.
It's one thing to know the history of a country in the abstract, but it's quite different when you actually concretely dig up your own farm. Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
For me, the turning point was when we found that Bushman settlement site just in front of my house, 6,000 years old. Do we still have those?
We do. Actually just got them out. And it's amazing how rocks can start a conversation, really, I suppose, in so many ways. Should we move this map?
Do you remember that day in 2005 when Benny Daniels was involved in that excavation, and he held a tool something like this up and looked me in the eye and he said, "You see, Professor, my people were here before yours." You know, it's moments like that which completely changed everyone's attitude to this place. And you know, because implicit in the question, in saying my people were here before yours, it also asks, so how come the land's yours and how come I work for you?
I don't think we ever expected that history and archaeology could create those moments, perhaps. I mean, you knew the struggle from trying to communicate with the workers when you first started and people living here, and who would have thought that it was these stone tools that would create the language to speak to each other in?
All of the research that Tracy led us through ultimately had the very practical consequence of us changing the structure of the ownership of this farm. We now share the ownership of this farm with the farm workers. We're equal owners. And that's made an enormous difference to how we all feel about what we're doing. Our aim was not an academic one to study history, but to change history.
Based historically on the exploitation of a mixed blood and African labor, South Africa's wine industry has a powerful legacy in post-Apartheid South Africa. Today, it seems to be at a crossroads. To get to the surrounding township of Cape Town, one must take the train, an inexpensive means of transport mainly frequented by blacks. Sheila takes a group of students to the Langa Township for the day.
We will be preparing the food pairing today because we wanted to show which food goes with what. We started 2004, and then I had to go and start to do my own brand, which is Latita, meaning the sunrise, who was named after Langa, where we are going to now.
Close to the station, Sheila opened a wine shop where she presents her creations, the first one ever installed in a township.
We are getting to our store where we are storing our wines with the crew and our chef.
Sheila's students represent the new black middle class. Wine is one of the first luxury items they are buying for themselves.
These are the brands that we have here at Latita Wines. We've got the Rose, Rosé, and the Shiraz, and the Sauvignon Blanc.
The Latita Shiraz is a heavy-bodied wine.
Each student has the responsibility of choosing a bottle, depending on the dish of the day.
It's red meat. Okay. But with the Shiraz, I'm going to recommend that when you have the Shiraz, you don't have it with meat that is well cooked.
Okay, for me, I'll go for the Sauvignon Blanc because I love pork.
Okay.
And at the same time, I've tasted the Sauvignon Blanc. It's quite a very good wine and it's very gentle on the palate.
For today, we will go to the market where we will choose our meats and the fruit and the veggies for the whole day.
Before Sheila's store opened, the only alcohol in the township was a strong distilled liquor made right here. her training for the young people included a large element on prevention and education.
I didn't know anything about wine, but the day when she explained to me, like, what is wine? Like, how is it made? What is the sense of it in our generation and stuff? How do we see wine? Then from that day, I understood wine is not just a drink that you drink to just party and stuff. At the end of the day, you can have a conversation, you can have meetings, we can have like discussions and stuff about wine, we can dine with wine. It's not really for you to get drunk and just be messed up.
Wine is not just a beverage that you go and purchase and you drink out. There's so many elements that you can incorporate with wine, and that's what I've learned about wine for the past few months.
Do the spin pride now at home. This one, Kagiso, we're going to use it with our pinotage and Shiraz because it's a heavy meat. Yeah.
The tasting takes place at Sheila's home. Thanks to her business, she was able to buy a fully equipped house called Beverly Hills by people in the township. They also call Sheila the diva, and she's proud of her new home.
We are hungry. We need some stuff. We want food. How are you? Finally, we arrived. Yes, I can name myself as a diva, but it's so difficult. You must remember, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm everything. There is still lots of things to do because I need now to sell my wines and then at least I can achieve my goal. The industry is still dominated by white males, you understand? And it's not easy for us. And as a black brand, you need to have this oomph that I have, you know, because I had to push until the last days of my life. And we just want to show the world that we can do better. We just need the chance and to prosper. Sandra, who's helping chef.
And then your guest of honor.
Oh, my guest is gonna sit next to me. Yeah. We've got the rosé and the Sauvignon Blanc. Then the Shiraz. Anyway, anyone you will identify which wine goes with what now here, but the most important thing is your palates. I would love you to. Wow! There is our guest arriving without any knock. Huh?
Have you been busy again making wine, or what's the story, lady? I haven't seen you for so long time.
Thank you.
You're looking good.
Thank you, Ralph. You are welcome to Langa again.
Hey
After
guys.
a long time.
How are you doing?
Yes. And then come and have a seat, Ralph. This is my mentor, the person who taught me everything about wine. I'm so happy to have Ralph in our home. There's Ralph. And Corey, come over, my darling.
Maybe you drove me so mad over the period of times that we worked together, you know, that I never got this diva out of my mind. And so take it actually as the same thing what you are. This is actually the diva. Here we go.
Oh my God! So after I left, you created your own diva. Oh, it's touching me. Okay. That's great. Thank you so much.
South Africa remains a country in the making. Getting a piece of land to grow on is essential for every South African. The integration of the Black population has become a reality, and projects to instill wine culture within this community are multiplying. Today, the challenges of transforming the South African wine industry rely on its ability to generate a new social model, one that's more egalitarian. These are signs, as many steps towards a sharing of these lands, and which contribute to the great history of the oldest country in the New World.